In the season finale of Kings of Napa, pretty much everything that we've been experiencing in the last 7 episodes is quickly wrapped up, just as much as everything that we could see in season 2 is presented. In our first topic, it's pretty much about what's going on with Dana and Rose, as well as Kelvin and August, and even a touch of Melanie as well. So, to begin, Dana and Rose pretty much are done. Rose comes back and she's ready to reconcile, and part of the reconciliation is, starting to get back to that fertility treatment thing. However, she finds out that years ago, Dana got a vasectomy, so that's why she's been having all these issues with getting pregnant. And the thing for her is, he knew this and yet still had her doing hormones and all this other stuff as if that was going to help anything. So with being lied to so long, she decides she's done, screw this relationship. And then, of course, because Dana, is a very emotional man, he pushes out the idea that he never trusted her anyway because she's bisexual, knew that she always go back to a woman. And to add insult to injury, as we've seen with Bridget, once you get cut off from the family in terms of your relationship with whoever, your job also gets cut at the same time. So with that, she is now unemployed. Switching to Kelvin and August, they still have this sort of back and forth going about will they be together or not. And for August at this point, she just needs Kelvin to step up in a way that makes her feel secure. She's not going to chase this man. She's not going to deal with his drama, especially because she has more than enough drama when it comes to her family. So when it comes to him, she wants him to be her peace. And he says he's going to step up and do that for her, but it's hard to say whether or not that's going to be possible considering he's still going through a divorce, and with his wife, well, soon to be ex-wife, knowing about August and even meeting her a few episodes ago, just to check her out. It's going to be a lot of drama. It's just this season's not, it had too much going on for them to really touch upon that. But next season, definite possibility. Last thing we're going to go into for topic 1 is just that Melanie wakes up. Now, she's not awake in the form of, she can move around or even start physical therapy, but she is able to talk, look around, and is conscious enough to interact with. So the second topic is pretty much just going to wrap up all the storylines that happened in season 1. So to begin, we have Kelvin still questioning whether Bridget is a blackmailer or not, and with him being with August, she's kind of going back and forth as well, but her issue is she doesn't want to seem like she flip-flops on things. So just as much as it took a lot of evidence to get her on the side of thinking Bridget is the person who's blackmailing them, it is decided that in order for her to go back onto the side of thinking she's not, she needs more than just Kelvin's word. But that comes rather quickly, and unfortunately for her, almost violently. Thanks to doing some research, they figure out and we learn that that white man that Bridget has been meeting secretly, he's not a co-conspirator. What he is someone who works with her for her art in order to get into a gallery, and it's not clear why they've been sneaking around because it just seems dumb for them to do that. But she has been trying to work with him in order to, not necessarily get a backup plan, but at least to have her art somewhere besides in her house. Because as we've seen, her house is starting to get filled with canvases that are unsold and taking up a whole lot of space. But going into actual is the blackmailer, that's Grossbeck. Grossbeck, something like that. It's been like 2 or 3 weeks. I can't remember how they pronounce his name. Anyway, he is the person who actually is blackmailing the family. And the reason he did that is there's a bit of history there. His grandfather sold Reginald the land that they used for the winery. And in Grossbeck's mind, Reginald, because I guess Reginald was from Oakland and there was assumptions made, they thought that he was poor and everything, and so it seems they gave him a better deal than what he ended up getting out of it. Fast forward a couple of years, we're told that Reginald sold some of the land to Sean and Sean, possibly for debts, who knows what, and following that, Grossbeck wanted to buy some of the land back. He was rejected, and according to Grossbeck, he was even laughed at over this. And due to that, he got in his feelings because he feels like what should have been his was stolen from him, and thus he started to blackmail Reginald and even got greedy and went after Sean and Sean. This is all discovered by August, a little bit too late, because she sees the car that was on the property from the security tapes that for some reason all the way up until now wasn't looked into. I don't know why, but she finds it on the property. Grossbeck confesses. Then after that, he tries to attack her, but August is not the one or the two, so she whoops that ass within 3 hits. And next thing that you know, the police are coming in. Kelvin's coming in because she tried to get in contact with him before this all went down. And from there, you know, Grossbeck gets arrested. Bridget is vindicated, and with that, so comes Bridget coming back to the company, but she decides it's time to draw some boundaries because she's been screwed over by August and the family twice. So no more of this BS of let's be friends and a close family. Nah. What you gonna do, since I'm gonna be the one that saves you behind when it comes to this dessert wine and everything, I'm gonna need a 20% raise. I'm gonna need a VP title. And when it comes to you and me, there's not gonna be this merry-go-round about us being friends and close like sisters. Biologically, we might be sisters, but in terms of our actual relationship, it's a no-go for me. And with that, she makes it very clear that it's not going to happen like that. Give me my title, give me my money, I'll do my work, I'll take my behind home. And she doesn't necessarily flip off August, but you can see in her attitude that this is definitely a F you pay me situation. Oh, and just for an add-on to that, the wine eventually does come out, does well, and Yvette is even able to bring Jason back on board in his company, and it seems with getting Jason back, that means the end for Sean and their dessert wine. And just to really top things off, Jason decides he's going to propose to Yvette, and she says yes, even though, because I can't get past it, Jason said a lot of stuff when it comes to this whole, what was it? Something that he said in the last episode regarding black people and all that made me feel very like side-eye of him. But I guess because Yvette, you know, I want to go and say maybe Yvette hasn't had like a decent guy in a while, but we don't know that. But considering over these course of episodes we didn't really get to know Yvette, there's still kind of that murkiness in regards to who she was before all this happened, never mind who she is besides everyone's favorite aunt and, you know, the one who definitely brings some flavor to the show. But again, like a lot of things that we're talking about, maybe in season 2 we can get that information that we didn't get in this season because it was just, again, too much going on to really deep dive into some characters like Yvette. For the last topic, we're going to go into what future plans are set up for the show. And the first thing we have to go into is that Christian's girlfriend, Sheila. It seems that Christian, for all this time that he's been with her, has been a mark. And she's trying to, I guess, dupe him out of his money through working with these 2 men named Ray and Cornelius. Now, what exactly are Ray and Cornelius trying to do in terms of using Christian's money? It's hard to say, mainly because we don't get to know them like most characters on the show. But what is clear is that Sheila's definitely trying to take him for all he's worth. And whether or not Ray and Cornelius are her real boyfriend and she's just playing Christian for money, as I just said, it's hard to say. But season 2 would definitely go into that further. And also something that we've gone into further is this new gentleman named Everett, who apparently just bought Sean and Sean's land, I guess because the Jason deal fell apart for them, that is. And from what it seems, he might be trying to flirt with Vanessa. Now, is she receptive to this? Kinda yes, kinda no. Right now, she's just trying to figure out how is this young man going to buy this land, and despite all the zoning issues that there would be, him build a 5-star resort on that land that he just purchased. And because of what could come about because of him buying that land and trying to do the resort, there is a good potential that between Vanessa going back and forth with him, if not bringing in this local city council, there's going to be a lot of tussles in the future. Which leads to one last thing. Rose is not going to take Dana firing her and kicking her out of the family as something that she's just going to take with, not severance package, but that could be part of it, but alimony, I mean to say. So she's ready for war. And strangely enough, she goes to Bridget about this, and not because she's trying to get back with her or further explore what could be the relationship, but more so because that's the only friend she has. And right now, she wants to vent about all Dana has done, what he hasn't done, how nasty this divorce is going to get, and even the idea of potentially exposing the family secrets. Now, what secrets beyond what we saw this season there could be, who knows, but lest we forget, Dana was the one who not only held the purse strings, but also was a petty ass dude. So imagine all this stuff, not only that he said to Rose just for venting purposes, but also the stuff he might have left around for her to discover. So right now, as of this video, I haven't seen anything about Kings of Napa returning for a second season, but if and when it does, it's going to probably be a little bit more streamlined than what we saw this season, but it's definitely not going to drop on the drama at all. When it comes to the highlights for this episode, we have two, and it's how they wrap things up with the blackmail storyline, and then the second was going to be how they set things up for season 2. In terms of wrapping up the blackmail storyline, what I appreciate is how the show and the writers wanted to tap into the idea of what white privilege is and what's the basis of it. Now, in many ways, we can see Grossbeck, and he represents that vocal minority who believes they don't have white privilege because they're not rich, they don't have a high social status, and specifically when it comes to Grossbeck, he doesn't have the type of land that would give him money and make it so that he's not waiting on people of color or else even queer people in the terms of Sean and Sean. Yet, at the same time, we're looking at all that the King's family has to go through when it comes to just trying to secure Jason's company to get their wine off the ground. And even when it comes to Sean and Sean, who are, I don't know if they were a couple, but I think they were a couple. It's been a while, I can't remember. Either way, they too, you can see, had certain amounts of vulnerabilities because if it wasn't for Reginald allowing them to purchase that land, who's to say that anybody else would have let them do so in order to even start a company and be competition to King's Wines? So thinking about all that, it really makes you think about what the King's family does in order to build generational wealth and all the challenges for them to get that far compared to whatever Grossbeck's family had to do in terms of getting that land, which could have just been setting up shop and then keeping it for a few generations, because I don't think they said that Grossbeck's family came from money and then between his father, maybe his grandfather, they squandered it. So with that in mind, him deciding to go after this family, the King's family, and then even Sean and Sean, it makes sense. Again, not really built up to in a way that I think it should have been, but considering how racism has always been a bit of an undercurrent when it comes to this show, while I wouldn't say Grossbeck is outright racist, even though he almost said the N-word when he was talking about Reginald, I believe, but I definitely think in terms of a villain and someone who was supposed to hate, not a bad choice. Could have had better build, but not a bad choice. Which leads us into the second highlight, which is how season 2 is set up. Right now, we went from a cheating storyline, killing off a lead character, having a notable blackmail in the area, and I think season 2, things could calm down a little bit, and with that, maybe be less about, throwing everything in the kitchen sink for the audience, and maybe start going into more character-driven storylines. I mean, for example, as you mentioned in the recaps, there are certain characters who we still should and need to know more about, especially their lives outside of the King's family. Yvette, for example, is still somebody who, she talks about her and Reggie growing up in Oakland and everything, but we don't really get to... Well, this show, as we've seen, doesn't do flashbacks of how characters looked and acted in the past, but in terms of stories, we got Melanie talking about how her life was, Vanessa co-signing on certain parts that she remembers, but Yvette, she only gave us like little anecdotes here and there and didn't really get to talk about herself and really talk about her and Reggie growing up in Oakland and what she's gone through. We know that she started her business by selling out of a car at the church, and then it became what it is, but outside of that, she hasn't really gone into who she is as a person. She's just been the comic relief and also presenting a, I don't want to say an urban character because I feel like urban is just a weird blanket term, but she's been an outlier on this show. And I feel that to make her more than just comic relief, she needs to be presented as a full fledged person who has a life outside of what she can offer her nieces, nephews, her sister in law, and we just need to see her outside the mansion. And I would even say, when it comes to, I just want more for her. I mean, I could go round and round and repeat myself 17 times, but really, but all I want is just more for Yvette and what she can bring to the show. And I would even say when it comes to Christian, with him finally getting something that feels like a storyline, he may finally, through Sheila, get to be developed as somebody. Because, again, you get little anecdotes, little information about him, like he's bipolar, how he wants to start this own liquor brand. And it's something that, the show touched upon a little bit throughout this season, but never really gave him the chance to really bulk up. For both Yvette and Christian, they really relied on either Dana, August, and what's going on with that drama, just to remind you that they're there. And while, of course, as we mentioned multiple times in various recaps and reviews, Yvette had her funny thing going, Christian never was really given much to do. Yes, in the last episode, he was able to, as, Sean and Sean were getting the dessert wine thing and was doing all that, he was able to go with Dana and, bulk up and, threaten people, but while he played it off realistically, at the same time, it kind of was like, what you doing? Where's this person coming from? Are you just trying to prove that your family's from Oakland now? Okay. Weird flex, but I get it. But anyway, right now, the hope is that all the people who couldn't get focused on because the show was very drama and story driven in this season, hopefully in season 2 it gets more character driven and we can really get to know these people, especially as, from what it seems, it's going to be a lot of mudslinging when it comes to Dana and Rose. Sheila's going to start going after Christian and maybe start infiltrating the family, and that's going to cause issues. Kelvin has his divorce possibly getting finalized, never mind child custody, which is going to be so much drama for August and him. Vanessa, with this new dude named Everett, there's going to be the question of if he is going after her in terms of romantically, is it going to be to marry her and get the land so he can do what he wants, or is it going to be, real flirtations, real trying to love on her and stuff like that? If not, her just going back and forth with him in order to make sure that he can zone for his property because tourism causes pollution and that could affect the vines or what have you. And I'll put it this way, I have hopes for this show. I know for most of this show I've been very much kind of iffy about it, but that's just because it had reality show level drama, and I just found it hard to get into. But like with any show, you can't really just judge it off of the first few episodes. I know for most people, myself included, you got 2 or 3 episodes to really get me, and after that, you lost me, especially if I have to pay money to watch it or this other stuff to see. But Kings of Napa, almost every episode had a little bit of a silver lining, and whether that was a vet or whether that was just how nasty Vanessa got, it kept you going. And my hope is that rather than just hold on to those one specific moments each episode, we may get a full episode that's just like everything you could hope for and more.